I did vipassana. I don't know if you ever done it before. It's a 10-day meditation retreat.
I
And the
haven't.
whole idea of vipassana is to actually hone in, to learn, to cultivate the mechanics of how the Buddha achieved enlightenment. The whole idea of it, the whole teaching, the number one thing that I got from vipassana is the source of suffering. There are two. One is grasping for things, or craving for things that, yeah, I don't have, as well as for aversion, pushing away, resistance to things that I actually do have. So part of the human condition is this desire for what is not. Hey, yeah, this is reality. I don't like this, or I like this other thing, right? So it's insidious, or it's part of the human condition. And then to learn how to actually not evaluate, not assess our own self-worth based on our bank account, our popularity, what our spouse thinks of us, or what our social media audience thinks of us, is part of the, I would say, the noble warrior discipline, right? If we want a life of fulfillment.
The more you can just be really real with yourself, and some people may have got so far down the path they don't even know who they are anymore. They've lost their identity, and that happens when you sell a business sometimes, or you get out of a relationship, because everything you communicated and how you talked about yourself was around that one thing. Once you really figure out who you are and what you want and start communicating that to the world, you'll be a lot happier. There'll be a weight lifted from you. I'll give you an example. And you mentioned I sold ice. So I grew up in the ice business. I worked with my father selling packaged ice for a living, called Adam's Ice Service. And so that was always a part of my identity since I was born. And so I knew one day I wanted to buy the business for my father. I ended up going to college, graduated. I eventually went and bought the business for my father. After I bought the business and a few years go by, I realized I started having conversations in my head that I might not be doing this for the rest of my life. But what I had told myself for many years, I said I would never sell the business. It would always be a part of me. And so I started to have this conversation myself, like, Brandon, like, what's best for you? And so once I realized that, hey, I don't know if I want to sell ice forever, because the focus on this is taken away from the other areas that I really want to focus on. I had the conversation with my father, and it led to eventually selling the ice business. And it was very hard for me because it was such a part of my identity, everything. And so the day that I sold the business and was completely out was probably one of the most freeing things for me, because I no longer, one door was closed and another open. And all of a sudden, all these other opportunities opened up for me. But going through the process of just acknowledging I had to do something I always said I would never do was very difficult, because my identity was that. What happens is when people sell a business, they're so caught up in that identity, the relationships, the friends, everything involved with that, afterwards they don't know how to be a human anymore. They have to completely change their identity. They have to pivot. They have to transition. And that's, again, another thing I learned from the Shea Hillenbrand story was identity.